Welcome to Cinema Bites. Your go-to for movie recaps in a flash. Big twists, epic moments, all in just minutes. The movie starts with Cassie and her father at sea. Her father is extremely happy with her as he teaches her how to swim. Everything seems beautiful and peaceful, but Cassie feels something under her feet. Her father spots a massive shark beneath them. He tells her to grab herself and head back to the yacht. When her mother hears her screaming, she rushes out of the kitchen towards them, realizing a shark is chasing them. Her father manages to get the girl to safety, but as he tries to follow her, the shark bites him and drags him into the depths of the sea. Cassie and her mother are devastated, screaming in anguish. Years pass after this incident. Cassie has grown up but still dreams about what happened to her father. Waking up terrified, she heads to the bathroom, swallows some sedatives, and her husband, Greg, wakes up to check on her. This is because they have a long day ahead. We learn that Greg works at a museum in London, and they are currently staying at a hotel on the island of Loronium in Indonesia. Greg specializes in an area of the ocean where an ancient ship sank hundreds of years ago. He is looking for the gold aboard the ship to deliver it to the museum. Since his wife is a marine biologist, this trip is perfect for her. But today marks the anniversary of her father's death. She usually visits his grave on this day every year. This makes her husband worried about her, and he wants her to visit her father's grave as usual, but she refuses because she really needs this trip to distract herself, move on, and start anew. Anyway, the two of them arrive at the ocean and stay in a modest cabin on the shore. After a while, Benz, Greg's friend, arrives. We learn that Benz owns a boat and will take Greg, Cassie, and two French tourists on a diving trip. He introduces them to his fiancée, Tessa. Then they board the boat. On board, Benz introduces them to Kai, his assistant. Although Kai is a man of few words, he is very skilled in everything related to the sea and ships. This is why Benz considers him his right-hand man. Anyway, dear, after that, Benz goes to the captain's cabin and starts the boat, beginning their journey into the ocean. But Cassie feels very anxious because she has developed a phobia of the sea since the incident with her father. We flash back to Cassie as a teenager, standing on a rock near the sea with her grandfather, Seamus. We're not surprised by his name, given that he's an oceanographer and marine biologist. He is on a field trip with his students, talking to them about the ocean and how it's essential to preserve the environment. He emphasizes that they should see themselves as guests, whether on land or in the sea, and therefore must not harm sharks in the ocean or plants and animals on land. After finishing his talk with his students, he asks them to leave so he can have a private conversation with his granddaughter. He knows from her mother that she has nightmares and struggles to sleep since what happened to her father. He tries to comfort her and asks her to forget what happened. We return to the present, where Benz hears in the news about pirates in the ocean, specifically in the northern region. As luck would have it, that's the same direction they're heading. Not only that, dear, but the Indonesian Coast Guard tried to catch the pirates the previous night. They had information that the pirates were carrying 80 kilograms of drugs. However, the pirates threw the drugs into the ocean and managed to escape. At this moment, the pirates use an underwater tracking device to locate the spot where they dumped the drugs. Meanwhile, a gang led by someone named Jordan is on their speedboat. They spot the pirates' boat from afar. As they approach, Jordan orders his men to eliminate the pirates in no time. They retrieve the tracking device the pirates had to locate the drugs. They also throw the pirates' bodies into the sea. At the same time, Cassie video calls her grandfather to reassure him before they dive deeper into the ocean, as the network might cut off. Moments later, the call disconnects due to poor signal. She notices a cage on the boat that divers use to enter the water to observe sharks. She loses her temper and snaps at Benz. Her husband tries to calm her down. Benz explains that the cage is on his boat because some divers enjoy watching sharks but are afraid, so they go down and watch them from inside the cage. She apologizes to Benz and walks away to sit alone. Her husband follows her, and she apologizes to him too. He understands her feelings, knowing that witnessing her father's death as a child was traumatic. We flash back again to her grandfather encouraging her to train in swimming to face her fear of the sea and sharks. The scene cuts off, returning to the present. Greg is surprised when Cassie wants to dive with him, despite her fear of the ocean and her phobia of touching water. He agrees and encourages her to confront her fear. Meanwhile, the pirates manage to locate the drugs at the bottom of the ocean. At this moment, Greg, Cassie, and the two French tourists prepare to dive. Greg and Cassie reach the shipwreck and find a gold coin. Meanwhile, Tessa poses for photos near the shipwreck, and her fiancé, Pepper, takes pictures of her. Suddenly, a massive shark appears. The two are terrified and hide inside the shipwreck, but the shark doesn't leave them alone, ramming into the wreck. When it finds no way in, it swims away. They think they're safe and swim as fast as possible to the surface. Suddenly, the shark attacks Pepper, taking a bite out of his thigh. As he screams, the shark gets angrier and takes his entire leg before swimming away. When Cassie sees the shark, she warns her husband. The two of them quickly head to the surface. Everyone gets back on the boat one after another. They're all in shock. Pepper is in critical condition. When Ben sees the size of the shark's fin as it swims away, he can't believe that such a large shark exists at this time of year. He contacts the Coast Guard, reporting that they have an injured person on board who was attacked by a shark. He asks them to come quickly because his boat is old and can't reach the shore fast enough. They need to get Pepper to the hospital before it's too late. At this moment, Kai spots the pirate's speedboat. So they change their direction and head toward the launch because the launch developer must be strong and can get them to the shore quickly. When they approach the launch, Benz informs Jordan about Piper's condition and allows him to come to their boat to see Piper himself. Jordan doesn't hesitate and moves to their boat, introducing Benz to his men, Apache, Chasen, and Chucky. When Jordan sees Piper, he doesn't appear affected and continues talking about unrelated matters. He shows them the shark tooth he has and mentions that he had previously been attacked by a shark but managed to defeat it. Unfortunately, Piper passes away, and we flash back to the past. We see Shemus encouraging Cassie to swim when she's tired, motivating her to keep going. Back to the present, Jordan suspects that Ben saw them finishing off the pirates, which is why they approached their boat. He orders his men to eliminate everyone on the boat and throw them into the ocean afterward. He informs Benz and his companions that he will use the diving equipment on their boat to send his men underwater to retrieve something of his from the ocean floor. Benz tries to convince him that they are all divers and can retrieve what he wants, but Jordan doesn't believe him and points a weapon at him. Cassie intervenes, explaining to Jordan that his men would need to enter the shark cage to protect themselves, but the cage wouldn't bear their weight along with their equipment. She suggests that someone with a slim build, like her, should go into the cage to retrieve his belongings, which are likely drugs. She assures him that she will tie the boxes to the cage and bring them up. Jordan is impressed by her intelligence, and his men agree, convincing him to let her do it since they refuse to go into the shark-infested waters. Jordan agrees, but when Greg attempts to dive with her, Jordan refuses, wanting Greg to stay on the boat to ensure his wife complies with his demands. He shows Cassie a tracking device, pinpointing the location of the drugs, and informs her there are 4 boxes that she must retrieve. We flash back to the past again, where Shemus wakes Cassie up and recommends a book about the ocean and marine life for her to read. After finishing it, she decides to become a marine biologist like her grandfather. Back to the present, Greg warns Cassie to be careful, and Benz informs her that she has a maximum of 45 minutes to complete the task. She enters the cage, which is lowered into the water. When the cage reaches the bottom, Cassie is startled to find 2 large sharks nearby. The sharks circle the cage for a while before swimming away. Taking the opportunity, she grabs the rope she has and exits the cage. Meanwhile, Greg secretly drops the gold coin he has without Jordan noticing. At that moment, they all see a great white shark approaching, swimming nearby. Greg fears for his wife and begs Jordan to pull the cage out of the water immediately, but Jordan refuses, saying she must surface with the goods or not at all. At the bottom, Cassie secures the 4 drug boxes together with the rope, but suddenly, a shark attacks her. She quickly gets back into the cage, locking the door behind her and tying the rope to the cage. When the shark attempts to break the cage, the boat shakes, prompting Benz and Greg to plead with Jordan to pull the cage up. This time, Jordan agrees. As Benz begins to turn the crank that controls the cage, the shark bites the rope, causing one of the drug boxes to fall. The cage surfaces, and Cassie opens the door, climbing onto the boat. Chasen immediately jumps into the water to retrieve the fallen box, and informs Jordan that only 3 boxes remain. Jordan is displeased and points his weapon at Greg, but Cassie explains that a shark was chasing the cage and cut the rope, causing the box to fall. Suddenly, the shark attacks Chasen, killing him. Greg seizes the opportunity to attack Jordan and tries to take his weapon, but Jordan overpowers him, strikes him, and pushes him into the water. Not stopping there, Jordan shoots at Greg in the water to ensure he's dead, but Greg manages to escape without being hit. Cassie, unaware if Greg is alive or dead, breaks down and calls out for him. Meanwhile, Chucky also falls into the water and is torn apart by the shark. Apache tries to save him but is too late. After a while, things calm down. Cassie finds the gold coin Greg had given her. Jordan points his weapon at her and to Sarah, intending to kill them, but Cassie shows him the gold coin. She reveals that her husband works in a museum and was searching for gold from the wreck of an old sunken ship. During their first dive, they found these gold coins, and there are many more left to be discovered. Jordan becomes greedy and demands that Cassie dive again to retrieve the gold. Cassie agrees, but is shocked to learn that her French friend will dive with her. even though Tessera is terrified of sharks. At the same time, Greg spots the pirates' boat that Jordan and his men had attacked. He quickly swims toward it. Meanwhile, Apache and Jordan throw Piper's body into the ocean, and Tessera is deeply saddened. Cassie, injured from the earlier shark attack, has a wound on her body. When Tessera sees the wound, she becomes even more anxious and refuses to go back into the water. Cassie convinces her that they must dive, or Jordan will kill them. She promises never to abandon her. Cassie notices Jordan looking at her with admiration. She leaves her friend and exits the cabin. Meanwhile, Greg boards the pirates' boat and finds a transmitter. He contacts the Coast Guard, providing them with the coordinates of Benz's boat and informing them that pirates have hijacked it and that there are tourists on board. Back in Jordan's cabin, one of his men brings Cassie to him, informing him that she wants to speak with him. Cassie, visibly angry, confronts Jordan about his admiring looks, but he denies it. At that moment, Jordan learns that the Coast Guard is approaching the launch. He rushes out of the cabin, followed by Cassie. Upon seeing the Coast Guard boat, he orders Cassie to return to Benz's boat. He threatens her that if she talks or warns her friends, he will kill them all. They all return to Benz's boat. When the Coast Guard spots Jordan, they confront him. Kai asks him for the ship's papers. Jordan signals Apache and his partner to open fire. They manage to take out all the officers. At that moment, a bullet hits Kai and he falls to the ground. Cassie and Benz try to save him. When Jordan sees them, he tells Cassie to leave him and bring him the gold, but she refuses and tries to save Kai. Meanwhile, Greg is still trying to contact the Coast Guard to rescue his wife and the others with her, but no one responds, so he decides to turn the boat around. He also finds a machine gun and decides to rescue his wife himself. Cassie and Sarah prepare to dive, but Sarah is terrified of the sharks. Cassie reassures her, and the two jump into the water. When Jordan approaches Kai, he finds Benz trying to help him and giving him water. With extreme coldness, Jordan shoots Kai, killing him. Benz gets angry and attacks Jordan, but Jordan shoots him in the arm. Benz escapes, and Apache chases him. However, Benz manages to take him down with an arrow, causing him to fall into the water where sharks devour him. When Benz emerges from the cabin, he finds Jordan waiting for him. Jordan shoots him again, and Benz collapses. Meanwhile, Sarah is still terrified and decides to head to the shore. Cassie refuses to join her, so Sarah leaves and starts swimming toward the shore. But a shark attacks and kills her too. At that moment, Cassie lets herself sink into the depths of the ocean. As the shark approaches her, she remembers her grandfather's words about facing the monster that lives in the deep ocean, as it had caused her psychological trauma she needed to overcome. Cassie removes her diving gear. When the shark gets closer, she looks it in the eye and places her hands on its face. The shark backs off and swims away. She surfaces and swims toward the boat. Meanwhile, her husband is nearing the boat with a weapon and dives into the water, swimming toward her. When Cassie gets back on the boat, Jordan asks her about the gold. She gets angry, leaves him, and walks away. When she sees her husband, Kai, she realizes Jordan killed him, not just him but also Benz, and becomes even angrier. When Jordan asks her again about the gold, she tells him to go get it himself. At that moment, Greg reaches the boat and enters Jordan's cabin, searching for him but not finding anything. Suddenly, one of the pirates attacks him, and they engage in a brutal fight. Eventually, Greg manages to take him down. On the boat, Jordan points his weapon at Cassie, intending to kill her, but Greg arrives just in time, pointing his gun at Jordan and ordering him to drop his weapon before he lets his men finish him off. Jordan throws down his weapon but then attacks Greg. As they fight, Cassie grabs Jordan by the neck to protect her husband, but Jordan pushes her to the ground. Without hesitation, she grabs a gun and shoots him. But even then, with cold indifference, Jordan lights a cigarette. Angered, she shoots him again, and this time, he falls into the water, where the sharks feast on him. Cassie runs to her husband to check on him. They are surprised to find that Benz is still alive. He urges them to head to shore quickly as he needs to get to a hospital immediately. 2 weeks later, we see Cassie sitting with her grandfather by the ocean. It's clear she no longer fears the ocean or sharks, and that's how the movie ends. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to get more new videos. See you next time.